Hello everybody, Levi Clay here, and I'm back again to do something new, something I've not done before on this channel, and that's a review. So in the interest of disclosure, I have been sent this book by the author to give my thoughts on. And as you all know from my videos up until this point, that means that you're going to get an honest opinion. So I'm going to say some good things about this book, I'm going to say some bad things about this book. It's honest, it's what I genuinely think. So, if this book appeals to you, if it looks like something that you might enjoy or get something out of, and there's lots of cool content in here, you can find a link to it on Amazon below in the video description. So the video we're talking about, as the title will have given away, is The Art of Scale Weaving by Juan Antonio Rivera. It's an interesting book. I actually saw this before I was approached to give my thoughts on the book. Just saw the title and thought to myself, that sounds interesting. I'll add that to my Amazon wishlist and I'll get around to reading that at some point. The problem is my Amazon wishlist has about 50 books on it and I intend to buy them all, but it will take time before I'll be able to get my hands on all of them and give you my thoughts on them. So it was very nice when I was approached by one to give my thoughts on this book. He said he'll post me a copy and I can give my thoughts on it. So, what is The Art of Scale Weaving? Well, The Art of Scale Weaving is an interesting book in that it deals with something that I already feel is a huge part of the way I teach. It's actually, this book has turned out to be almost like a reference material for my personal teaching method, which is interesting. People often ask me, do you have a book that you'd recommend for the cage system or this or that or whatever? And the answer is usually no, because I've put my system together in my head based on the way I do things. So it's not really come from this book or whatever. This book comes very close to that. And that I found very, very interesting. The basic approach is to be able to see root notes, and then on top of root notes you can see triads or pentatonic scales, and then around those you can see big scales. In doing that, you never lose track of the original thing, which is the chord, the harmony. And that's where this book really hits the mark. Taking an idea like a C minor chord, C minor sound, and understanding it from the perspective of here's a C minor triad, and here's a C minor 7 arpeggio, and here's a pentatonic scale that we play around that, and here's a Dorian scale that fits around all of that. When you do it that way, you never lose that C minor sound. Now, if you're playing C minor, that comes from the B flat major scale, Dorian. I'm talking C Dorian here. Obviously, C minor comes from the E flat major scale. C Aeolian comes from the E flat major scale. When you think of things in that way, it's easy to get lost in the fingerings, running up and down scales, losing track of the sound that you're intending to play. So the approach of focusing on a chord and then how the notes fit around that, and then being able to, and this is where the title is great, being able to weave those scales into each other. Juan describes it as like a basket or a tapestry fabric. When you interlace things, you get this trellis pattern connection, a connection between everything where everything is well woven. That's a big part of the way I play. So an exercise I like to present to my students is I don't really call it weaving, but I may actually start using that term now, mixing arpeggios and scales. So 4-note arpeggio, 4 notes of scale. We'll ascend up 4 notes of the arpeggio, then move to the nearest scale tone and descend. Nearest arpeggio tone, ascend. Nearest scale tone, descend. And what that's programming you to do is understand that when you're playing a scale, 4 of the 7 notes are still the notes of the arpeggio. Those other notes are just connecting arpeggio notes together. So very cool and interesting approach. I'd also like to give credit. There is a great explanation of categorization of cage positions in this book, and I really enjoyed that. So, the downsides, and it's not really downsides, I should be clear about this. It really depends what you're looking for in a book. I think of this book as, it's over here. I think of this book as a great piece of reference material. It contains, it's like a great chord book. There are thousands and thousands of chords in a chord book, in a great chord book. But it doesn't really demonstrate how to use the chords. It's more, these are the chords. So in this particular setting, it's the same basic principle. You're presented with the diagrams, but never any musical exercises. And I thought that was a shame for what I was interested in. I was interested in seeing how he approached the actual application of weaving these scales and concepts with chords together. Because, as I say, this is an approach that I actually use in my own playing, so it's interesting to see how someone else might approach that. That's not presented here. What you have, like I say, is a great reference book. It has everything you could ever need. So if I just open it up and flick through it, we have, let's get to the juicy bits. So here, I have scale diagrams, vertical harmonized major scales, and then on the next page, vertical harmonized major scales pattern 2. Now, that just goes on and on and on. You have more diagrams. This is me just turning the page. More diagrams. A little bit of text. More diagrams. More diagrams. More diagrams. And as you flick through it, you know, more diagrams and chord charts and things. Lots of diagrams. But not masses of examples. So if you need, you know, reference material as a way of inspiring your practice sessions, excellent for that. Absolutely excellent for that. And we all do need that. We need reference materials. Sure, your long-term goal is to have all of your reference materials in here so you don't think about them. But when you're practicing, it's nice to have them as a reference. The scales and diagrams are presented in an excellent fashion. You have root notes presented as black, arpeggio notes presented as grey, and then scale tones presented as hollow white notes. That's good because it means at a glance you have that sense of where the important notes are, where the root notes are, where the arpeggio notes are, and then in turn where the scale notes are. So great to demonstrate them that way. And lastly, he delves into parallel versus derivative modal theory. Now, I've talked about this before. It's a term that I took from the Mick Goodrick Advancing Guitarist book. That's covered here, but those terms are never used, and I feel that that's a shame because I don't actually like the terminology that's used, which I believe is vertical and harmonized. Horizontal and harmonized, is that right? I make a fool of myself now, don't I? So yeah, vertical harmonized and horizontal harmonized. Vertical and horizontal. I see the approach, I see what's attempted here, but actually parallel and derivative are better explanations of what these things are. You'll feel initially like I did. I was flicking through when I first got the book. The first day I sat down to read it, and I got to the vertical section, and I looked at it, and then I went, okay, diagram. Moved on to the next section, and we were looking at horizontal, and I was like, hang on a minute, these are the same diagrams but reprinted, and I thought they were the exact same diagrams but reprinted. And they weren't at all. The basic difference between those two things, again, derivative modal theory, taking one shape and interpreting that one shape as many different modes. So you might have the C major scale in shape 1, call it that, learning that when you play that, that's also the D Dorian scale in shape 5, or the E Phrygian scale in shape 4, or the F Lydian scale in shape 4, or G Mixolydian in shape 3, so on and so forth. That's cage terminology. That's derivative modal theory. Covering it in parallel modal theory is also excellent though. So then taking that one shape and developing each mode from that position. So here is a mode where we start on the 3rd finger on the A string. Here's major. Now here's Dorian, starting in the same way, starting on that 3rd finger on the A string. Now here's Phrygian, here's Lydian, all in that same context. That, to me, again, that's parallel modal theory. That's the more effective way, long-term, to learn modes. Recommended that you do things that way. But as I say, excellent that both methods are presented. Now, it really does dig in deep. There is a lot covered here. Just looking, and in all honesty, I've not read the entire thing because when you understand the concepts, you can apply the concepts to your practice very quickly. though as I say, they're not demonstrated. So we have pentatonic substitutions, Ionian from the root, and it goes through all of them. Lydian from the root, Lydian from the second, Lydian from the sixth, Locrian from the fourth, flat seventh, so on and so forth. Chapter 2, melodic minor scales and modes, and everything is here. Locrian natural 2 scale pack, altered dominance, flat 2, flat 5 pentatonic scale pack. There's a lot of information here. Harmonized scale weaving for the melodic minor stuff, and as I dig further, harmonic minor scales and harmonic major scales and their modes. So in terms of, I don't feel you'll ever need to go that far. Lydian flat 3, learning Lydian flat 3, the mode of the harmonic major scale, and then applying all of these concepts. I feel that by the time you've made it to page 205, you'll understand enough that when people say to you Lydian flat 3, you'll think 1, 2, flat 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, and you'll be able to apply all of the concepts already. But as I say, an excellent reference material. Excellent for the collection if you need to reference this stuff. So there we have it, the art of scale weaving. As I say, shame that it doesn't contain any musical examples, but if you need reference material, it is excellent for that. And as I say, also you can check it out in the description below. So massive thank you again for sending me this, and hopefully you didn't mind that review and you got some cool stuff out of it. Honestly, it's the approach that I use, and I can't really give something the stamp of approval more so than that. That's the way I do things, therefore not it's good, but I approve. So as I say, please do check that out in the description below. You can also check me out on Patreon by clicking this button up here. You can subscribe to my channel by clicking this button down here and check out 2 more of my videos there and there. Sorry for the downtime, guys. I foolishly decided to rebuild my computer and have been offline for 3 days. I thought it would take a few hours. It took days. It was painful, agony, and I've missed you all. But I will be posting regular content moving forward. Bye.